I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head constantly, thoughts jumbled around, think I need a new lobotomy. Wait, all these thoughts are too negative. I don't wanna get lost in the sedative. Gotta show them what I got, I'm competitive. You know I'm about to go off, I won't let them win. I'll take a stab, I wanna chase the bag. I wanna weigh, I can change all the things I lack. I gotta face the facts, I got a taste in that. Got me obsessed with the rest, I got an itch to scratch. I'll give up everything. If I could see my dreams, make things right. 'Cause I'll do anything to make what a reality. Don't let go.
In Burnsville, Minnesota, where 2 officers and a firefighter medic were unalived at the scene. We did press conferences, and now we are going to watch the procession for only the 2 officers. I haven't heard of one for the firefighter medic yet, but this is the procession for the 2 officers.
Well, good afternoon, morning. On Fox 9 and Fox 9, we're joining the next phase of laying these 2 police officers to rest here in Minnesota on a route from the ME's office in Minnetonka to Jordan.
You're watching the beginning of this procession now from the medical examiner's office in Minnetonka for the 2 Burnsville police officers who were killed on Sunday, Officer Paul Elmstrand and Officer Matthew Ruge. The paramedic, Adam Finseth, was taken to the funeral home in Jordan yesterday. So again, this procession is just beginning. They will make their way from Minnetonka on 62nd Street.
I'm wondering if
there.
they even had a procession before the firefighter medic, because I haven't heard of one, and he's already over at the funeral home.
To 494 down 169 to Jordan, and we will carry this procession in its entirety.
This is the phase where officers from all over the Twin Cities, primarily in the metro here, on this day will honor those 2 officers in the next phase, the next stage of them being laid to rest. Again, this route takes them 25 to 30 miles from Minnetonka down to Jordan. And so this is a procession that will probably take around 45 minutes. Again, those 2 hearses that you saw carrying the bodies, Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruge, en route to Jordan.
At the very least, 45 minutes to maybe an hour, because of the number of vehicles that will also be following. There were hundreds of vehicles on Sunday that followed the bodies of these officers from HCMC in Minneapolis all the way to the medical examiner's office. And it took more than an hour for that procession to end. Now, this is something that is tradition for public safety personnel to stay with the fallen officers. And they've invited the public to line the route as well. They're just asking people to please use extreme caution on all of these roadways. And we are seeing a number of people that are gathering with American flags and lining this route shoulder to shoulder to show their support and to honor these officers who lost their lives in this domestic call early Sunday morning.
What you're seeing here now is the site in Jordan where the officers will ultimately end there at the funeral home. And we will see along that routeway many, many first responder vehicles, both fire, police, rescue, and they will be there the whole way guiding their fellow officers, those 2 heroes, down to Jordan, to the funeral home there. Again, those 2 officers that that we are honoring today and following Paul Elmstrad, 27 years old. He joined the Burnsville Police Department in August of 2017 as a community service officer. He was promoted to officer in July of 2019, part of the department's mobile command staff, peer team, honor guard, and field training unit.
And Matthew Ruge, also just 27 years old. He joined the Burnsville Police Department in April of 2020. He was part of the department's crisis negotiation team, and he was a physical evidence officer. And Adam Finseth, the paramedic and firefighter with Burnsville Fire Department, he was taken to the funeral home yesterday, 40 years old. And he's also an Iraq War veteran. He talks about his Army service. And if you go to his LinkedIn page, he talks extensively about his Army service. And he was killed trying to help one of these fallen officers at that home on Sunday morning.
You can see the two hearses right there as the chopper there zooms in to the highway there. The route that we believe they're taking, 66th Street. 62nd Street. To 494 and then down 169 straight down to Jordan there, escorted by several different departments along the way. We did witness prior to coming on the air that family, friends, and many officers had gathered at the ME's office there, the facility in Minnetonka, to say their final farewells as well. And then they all gathered into their vehicles and will be part of this processional.
And it'll be a long line. Again, it's the tradition that they escort the fallen. And so likely maybe even as many as 100 law enforcement vehicles will be part of this procession to escort them properly down to the funeral home. Family members are also part of this and have been part of this as well on Sunday when they were taken from the hospital to the medical examiner's office.
Our Paul Bloom has been, he's been exposed to these many times. They're always, you know, they're called, obviously, very emotional to those in those vehicles en route. Paul, give us some insight into how important this is, though, for law enforcement to be a part of this.
Oh, this is so vitally important, Randy. Kelsey, thanks for having me, joining you here from the newsroom. Just to give you a little perspective on where that medical examiner's office is, kind of tucked in the corner of Minnetonka, Eden Prairie now, a newer facility. And this is sort of the extension of Highway 62. They'll eventually take a right onto 494 on the ramp and then head along 494 into the 169 corridor. Down to Jordan, and you will see officers from all over the Twin Cities. In fact, just driving back to the station here where we are in Eden Prairie about an hour ago, I saw some Plymouth, Minnesota, Plymouth police vehicles that will join in. I counted about 8 to 10 Burnsville firefighting ambulances, fire trucks. Of course, they are mourning as a complete city. But yesterday, this is the journey Adam Finseth took down to the funeral home in Jordan. These are brothers and sisters in uniform, everyone wearing the badge, all of these emergency responders, all of these recognizing the danger that these men and women put themselves in front of day in and day out to protect this community. And you will note that from the very beginning, the remains, the bodies are never alone. From the moment of whether it was being extracted out of that house in Burnsville to the medical examiner's office for their autopsies. They are always guarded, always protected. And this is that next step. You go to the funeral home. We haven't yet seen funeral arrangements yet at this point, but that would be the next step. Whether or not we do one significantly large memorial service or 3 separate, we just don't know. That will be up to families and loved ones. And of course, 2 of these, all 3 obviously leave behind families. We know a couple of the men married with children. We learned a little bit more today about Matthew Ruge. It turns out he's from the Wabasha-Kellogg area, so down along the Mississippi River there. They are planning a candlelight vigil for Officer Ruge, 27 years old.
We know now
Please listen to this. They found her. Listen.
I'm going live right now. I'm going live right now because we're just learning the area that we were at earlier today. We said we saw officers.
Can you hear it? They found her.
She from what we're learning right now, Audrey Cunningham has been recovered. She is. So Audrey Cunningham was found today. She's been found deceased, and they have not confirmed that it is her yet, but they are, I'm sure, going to be at this press conference confirming the body that they found earlier today while we were there is in fact Audrey.
Okay, guys.
Now, we can look at this several different ways. Obviously, this is
Let's hurry up and finish this one because there's a press conference for Audrey to see, if they're going to say she was found recovered. I am let me put my headphones on. I'm doing the press conference at 3 whether we're done with this or not. So let's go ahead and finish this, and then I'm coming right back with the press conference with Audrey. Let's finish this real quick, guys.
A shot in the chest and killed. He one of the officers today being transported down to Jordan. And then, as you mentioned, Paul Elmstrand. We've just heard so many beautiful stories. Of course, I'm attending University of Northwestern here in St. Paul. My wife with some beautiful comments in the last few days, grieving, talking about he slept so others, or he stayed awake so others could sleep. He stood tall to protect others. He wore, she kind of commented about how Paul would wear the same clothes, real basic clothing, shirts, T-shirts, whatever. His wardrobe very minimal, and that was so he could spoil his wife and children. I know his child 2 years old, and then a 5-month-old baby, so a newborn in that household. And you just think about those folks today and the families that have been shattered. So it is difficult, but I know these men and women in these additional vehicles riding with these officers, they would not miss this. This is part of the ritual of this, and it's sad. We do see these from time to time in the cities. We certainly see them more broadly across the country of late. An industry, a profession, if you will, that has been beat up a little bit locally here over the last few years, and this is a moment for everybody to come together, and then the beautiful scenes that we'll start seeing from unfolding from high above the highways here, which the overpasses, the flags. I saw some photos yesterday as firefighter Finseth was moved. The fire trucks on the overpasses, the firefighters standing at attention up on top of their fire trucks. No doubt over the next 30, 40 minutes, I'm sure we'll see those scenes unfold along this journey, but a very difficult, very hard day. And we'll just, continue to watch it with you guys and update you here from the newsroom, Kelsey and Randy.
Paul, you've been on the street watching a number of these processions over the last few years. And when you talk to people who just come to just show their support, what is the overriding feeling that you get from the average citizen, like we see in the background there holding an American flag?
Yeah, I mean, they want to be out there. It's it's a spectacle to see the visuals of all these vehicles with flashing lights. You mentioned probably 100 plus just in this procession, and this is still coming out of the funeral home. And we've already been on the air a few minutes, and you think about all these vehicles and how many, a mile or two, I'm sure this train will sort of take up. But these people are there to say thank you above all else. They want to be there. They know that. Them being there, the visual to other officers, to the grieving family that no doubt is close by the hearse today. They want to say thank you. They want to know that people will be there when they need to call 911. Dangerous situation, the protectors, and when the protectors are taken in such a horrific manner, people want to be seen, want to be heard. They want to say thank you. These are folks who made the ultimate sacrifice. And, we throw around heroes a lot, but again, the circumstance of this case, as we talked about over these last few days, going into a home, a barricaded gunman, 7 children inside, that was a situation that's close proximity that is a volatile, dangerous, potentially deadly situation. And these, men and women, they sign up to do this, and when something awful and horrible happens to them, there are a lot of people in this community who want to be there and say thank you and grieve as a community.
Paul, we've all talked to many law enforcement personnel in the last couple of days. I know you have as well. We talk about how this impacts the public, but there are law enforcement officers, first responders all over the state that are hurting as well. And we talked about this a little bit on Sunday. It's the reminder that what they're doing is throwing themselves into danger every day. And when an incident like this, as horrific as it is, it resonates deeply with them.
Absolutely, Randy. Domestic violence calls always the most dangerous, the most volatile, with traffic stops that these officers think about. And they have to respond. They respond. They do it willingly. They train. They know at some point this type of moment could happen. And, tragically for these 2 that are being moved today in Rugi and Elmstrand, they signed up. They wanted to be there. Paul Elmstrand, this was his. It was more than a job, a vocation. It was a sacrifice that he wanted to make, be a part of for his community, to protect and serve. But obviously, no one wants to see it end like this. But yes, law enforcement recognize that next 911 call, the guns in this community, it can, all of these men and women understand that this is a similar call that they could take at the very next moment, even during this, hour-long potential procession, they could get that 911 call. So no, they certainly understand it, Randy and Kelsey.
Yeah, it really does bring it home. Thanks, Paul. Hang in there. Going to check in with your perspective here as we make this route along. Again, just for those viewers that may be joining us either on Fox 9 or Fox Local, again, we are following this procession from the ME's office, the 2 slain Burnsville police officers from Sunday, making the trip from the ME's office in Minnetonka down to Jordan to the funeral home.
The bodies of Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Rugi in this procession today. We want to bring in Tacona County Sheriff Joe Lico to talk a little bit about this procession, also his department and the dangers for law enforcement. Sheriff Lico, thank you so much for joining us. And first of all, I know your department is helping the Burnsville Police Department right now. And I'm wondering too, if you had officers on scene there Sunday morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Randy and Kelsey. We did not have officers on the scene in Burnsville that morning, but we assisted and once we got the news and responded to assist them in any way we can. We're currently supporting them through providing officers along with the other police departments here within Dakota County to make sure that the calls for service in Burnsville are covered. And that includes the fire departments adjoining Burnsville as well, helping to make sure that those calls for service are handled.
Sheriff Lico, give us some perspective, because I know you have it, some perspective on how an incident like this, as we watch that procession make its way down the highway toward Jordan, how an event like this affects your everyday police officer.
It hits everybody. In our case here in Dakota County, we might be the 3rd largest county in the state population, but we're very tight. I know Chief Schwartz throughout my 27 years of experience here working with the sheriff's office. She's been around just about as long, if not longer, and we're all very tight. We work closely together, and even statewide, you can identify with these officers and the departments and the communities that are going through this pain because we share the same responsibilities and the dangers of the job, and we understand that ultimately some lose their lives, and we look at it as if, that could be us, that could be our partners, that could be our neighboring agency, and for all the families that have law enforcement, you understand this, and fire. You understand the dangers, and you pray to God that this day never comes. And it came for these three and their families, and their lives are forever changed. And it's extreme sorrow. You know, we try to cope, and you're seeing some of that coping right now. At least therapy for us is to make sure that we show our support, whether that's helping cover calls for service or being a part of this procession that you're witnessing, to provide that unity and that support to our brothers that lost their lives.
And Sheriff, it's Paul Bloom in the newsroom here at Fox, and I want to thank you again for joining us. I know you and I have had a couple of conversations over the last few days. Specifically, I don't want to necessarily call it uniqueness of Burnsville, but the emergency responders in that community, sort of a city, a proud city, you know, as you sort of mentioned, you know, in other places we might expect to see sheriff deputies on scene for something like that, but Burnsville is able. They're a strong force, police, fire. Could you talk about sort of that unique department? I believe the chief kind of climbed up through the ranks there. It's a very sort of proud, strong department. If you could kind of provide our viewers a little bit more insight on that Burnsville PD specifically, and their fire department, and how much this just crushes the soul of that community.
It's a very strong community, Burnsville. You know, with their public safety, their administrative offices, the huge support from their city council, mayor, city manager, and as I mentioned, we work closely together. We have a lot of collective initiatives that we do together. They have their own SWAT team, where the rest of us, and Egan as well. Egan and Burnsville have their own SWAT teams, but they do rely on us to assist. The other police departments, along with the sheriff's office, have our own SWAT team as well. So we do assist each other on critical calls. Our drug task force is consistent of investigators, police officers from every city within Dakota County. So we work closely. We know each other. I know many Burnsville officers through my years. Some of them have retired. I know they're hurting today. It's got a long tradition of excellence there, going back to previous chiefs and administrations, and Chief Schwartz has continued that excellence with her team, and we're just extremely saddened for all of them. I saw the pain on all their faces on Sunday when I walked in there, and it's hard for everybody. We just want to be there to support them any way we can.
Sheriff Lico, this is Kelsey again. I talked to a longtime law enforcement officer on Monday just about how dangerous domestic calls can be. And he said, he summed it up this way, you know, a lot of times they know you're coming because a 911 call has been placed. And this was an extremely dangerous situation that they walked into on Sunday. Can you just speak to the dangers that officers do face in these domestic calls?
Yes, and that's, it's been discussed before. I mean, domestic calls are one of our highest or high risk calls. You don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what the current emotion is. Oftentimes we get there, there's already been a dispute and the emotions are high. And I'm not projecting whatever happened in Burnsville. We'll find that out through the investigation through the BCA. But in general, with domestics, they're extremely dangerous. We don't know if there's access to weapons. You try to de-escalate, use time and distance, but sometimes when you have victims inside, you are forced and expected to act to protect that victim. In this case, the 7 children inside. They were at risk, and we had little or no choice to make sure that we were in close proximity to protect them. And when danger comes, we're not usually given a warning, right? It happens, and it happens in an instant. And officers are always on heightened alert on every traffic stop we do, every call we go to, but specifically for domestics, we have to make sure that we are walking in full awareness and understand what we could be walking into and be prepared to act if we need to.
Sheriff, I know that the relationship between the county and the city is usually a typically very tight one. And I know over the last couple of days, you have heard a lot and talked a lot about Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruge. Can you share some insight into these two individuals as we watch this processional make its way down 169. I know that a lot has been said about both of them, but share some of your insight, having been so close to those officers and that department.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. I wish I knew these gentlemen that were so courageous and doing their job that day and willingly went into that house. I've heard stories as of you have. I do know when I was there on Sunday talking to their partners, they were sharing some stories about them and just the amazing men that they were, young men that they were. And how they always just had that positive attitude, and they're willing to help and do anything for anybody. And that they just lifted up everybody else around them, and they're just a joy to work with. And that it doesn't surprise me, because that's the people that are out there protecting and serving. As unique and special as these gentlemen are, that lost their lives, they do this because it is their calling. They love helping people and protecting people. And when one of them, or more in this case, go down, it makes it even a heavier loss, because they're out there trying to do the right thing. And they're just special men. We're going to remember them forever. We won't let them their memory fade.
Well said.
You mentioned they're young men. These two police officers, I want to say again, just 27 years old, really just starting their lives. And Sheriff Lico, I know this is going to be a heavy, heavy time for all law enforcement in the area, and especially in Dakota County. Can you tell me how, especially with your experience, 27 years, as you said, in the field, how do you help your officers and help them to go out there every day following this?
Yeah, we have to check in with our people, and sometimes you don't know the connections that they have, or the feelings that they might be having, or things might be surfacing from previous close call incidents they've had, or maybe they know these officers and paramedic that they've had historic contact with them. You just have to check in with them and make sure they're okay, because the last thing we want to do is send people out that are not okay. And I think, in credit to our profession across first responders, when I started 27 years ago, you had to tough it out. And if you showed emotion, it was a sign of weakness. And maybe you weren't cut out for the job. That's no more. We're recognizing that the impact, the trauma that you can experience day to day throughout this job can pile up, and we have to take care of our own. Incidents like this is a very, very heavy weight to put already into your head from all the trauma you've experienced, and we have to make sure we check in. We have peer support. I know Burnsville does. There's access to chaplains. There's access to professional support through their city. I know we have it through our county, but really we just got to check in with each other as officers and deputies, and and fire. That's what we're doing day to day. That's my focus right now, and that's our focus here at the sheriff's office, and speaking for the cities in Dakota County. And I'll say this on behalf of all of our other cities here in Dakota County, our police departments.
Just waiting to hear what's going on, man.
You should be so proud.
A lot of people were hugs and tears and all that stuff.
You should be so proud.
Media from everywhere coming out.
Of the leadership that you have, and the people that are willing to
Okay,
step
I
up.
found it. I found it right here.
Now, so
for their brothers
this
and
is where I'm
sisters.
going to live stream.
Oh, let's pause this real
They really
quick.
came together.
I'm gonna show you.
And they will
I found it
continue
right
to
here.
help
So it says
Burnsville and that
Social News
community and the
located
fire
a
and police
body in the
department.
Trinity River near
I'm sorry
Livingston, Texas,
for
where she went missing.
the
Now this is
unexpected
the
emotion,
actual
but
post.
we expect that to
Audrey
happen with
Cunningham
everybody
missing body found in river,
through the course of the next
right?
weeks, months.
I don't think there's any
Yeah,
story to
Sheriff,
it.
we certainly
Yeah,
understand.
that's right
and,
here.
Give
An
you a
Amber
moment
Alert was
to
issued
have a
for
sip of
Audrey on
water
Thursday,
as we get
February
ourselves
15th,
all
when
in
she didn't
the
get on,
news, and again getting
or
back to
when
some
she
of our
didn't get on.
conversation over the last couple of days. I think back just a decade now. I think 10 years since Scott Patrick, the police officer, gunned it down during a traffic stop in Mendota Heights. That's a Dakota County case. So your county is not is tragically again going back 10 years, but is not new to this type of thing. Is it?
No, it is not. We have a sergeant here that actually was Scott Patrick's partner in Mendota Heights, Bobby Lambert, and we have experienced that individually and collectively. Unfortunately, before, and we've been to a lot of funerals going back just a year between Wisconsin and Minnesota and North Dakota. This is not something you get used to, and this is not something we want to get used to. This is not the way it's supposed to be, and we need to take care of our first responders, because without them, our communities won't be safe, and they are willing to sacrifice. We understand that there's low staffing challenges that we have at all of our police departments, sheriff's offices, fire, dispatch, and we're trying to get through those with what we have, and they're doing an amazing job. But it is a noble profession, and we continue to answer the call even at short staff. But we have a lot of heavy lifting to do. But this hurts, and we will together get through this as a community, and we'll be there for Burnsville.
Sheriff, on that, really, police recruitment. I don't want to associate this tragedy with police recruitment, but there is a sense all around the country of just how dangerous this job has become. And you referenced staffing. This is an issue that pretty much every community faces today.
Absolutely, you're correct, Randy. And we are paying attention to the school enrollments and doing our best to try to recruit and get people in. But understandably, on days like today and other things that you see out there as far as the violence and that we're encountering, that may cause some pause in those that are interested in the profession. But I tell our new people,
let's just go big. But not too big with
question,
marathon.
first of all,
Anyway, so I started running.
the call to step up and serve. Public service time to get. This is the time to get in and to be a part of the change and establish that trust and connection with your community, because they're longing for that. And each contact at a time, you can change that. So we're doing the best we can. I fully believe that the tide will start more into this. Our best recruitment tool is a retention tool. We got to keep the people that we have and take care of them. As I mentioned with trauma and the overall wellness with our people, to make sure that they're having long, healthy, safe careers. So that's primarily our short-term focus. But we do need to address the long-term staffing issues. It's changing, and some of the smaller police departments, as you're seeing, are having challenges with driving and providing services.
Sheriff Lico, thank you so much for joining us today as we follow this procession from the ME's office all the way down to a funeral home in Jordan. Your experience with nearly 30 years in law enforcement is so vital in understanding what's going on and where police work is now. And we can tell that you are very much there, certainly during this difficult time. And we wouldn't, the fact that you let a little bit of emotion out, we would expect that under these circumstances. And I think that's important, to be able to let it out sometimes, because these are very dark days.
Yeah, we acknowledge that this is not on a day like today. So we feel very grateful to have you with us today. And please tell others that you may run into who are in law enforcement, how important they are to all of us, not just today, but really every day. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, get that. And if I could leave you with one thing, people are looking to help, and there's a ton of things that people have been doing for Burnsville, flowers and food and things. The simplest thing is just to say what you just said, Randy and Kelsey, is to acknowledge the service that our people in uniform, and that our people need to hear that. they do need to hear that they have support. And overall, there's a large amount of support for first responders. I know that, and I have to remind our people of that times as they see the dark days, and that's all they see. So we have to remind them of their purpose and that they have support. So thank you for saying that. I'll make sure to pass it along.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff Lico. And that image that we just had on the air while he was saying that was of people lining Procession flags. And there are a number of people on this long journey from Minnetonka to Jordan who are lining the highways, the overpasses. We've seen fire trucks. There we have the people standing guard with American flags,
Veterans.
just, shoulder to shoulder, probably in mostly silence, but just to have that presence so that as these law enforcement vehicles drive by, they see that support in every community that they drive through. And you can see, we do have a shot, I don't know if we can pull this up, but of the fire trucks, and the ladder trucks have built a bridge to have that American flag draped over the procession as they pull into Jordan as well. And we'll be able to get that in just a moment.
So our viewers, there's been a processional that has been going on now for about 40 minutes, began in Minnetonka. Yesterday, there was a similar one with the body of Adam Finseth, the Burnsville firefighter paramedic. Today, we see the hearses carrying about two other fallen heroes, Paul Elmstrand and Matthew Ruge, who both were with the Burnsville Police Department, and their bodies now being transported in that journey with too many to count, really, Kelsey, the number of first responder vehicles that escort. And into Jordan, you saw there now, obviously.
Matthew on the left, Paul in the middle, and then Adam, the paramedic firefighter, on the right there. And the number of law enforcement vehicles, that means a lot to the families, that kind of support to show that strength of support. There are also ways the public can help these officers and their families. The city of Burnsville, on their website, they have the two places where you can go. And we have linked that to our own website at fox9.com because they're worried about some people out there collecting money in their names, but it's not really going to the right place. So non-monetary donations to support the families can be dropped off at Prince of Peace Church. And then Law Enforcement Labor Services is handling donations for the families. All of that, again, on the City of Burnsville website that we've linked to our own at fox9.com if you want to go find that.
And if there's something you would like to do at home, Governor Tim Walz ordered flags lowered starting at sunrise. It was yesterday, but you can do it today in honor of the police officers and the firefighter that were killed. Recognition and honors going on all over the state of Minnesota since Sunday, and will continue throughout the weeks and possibly months ahead. We know that today is really just one part of what will be a fairly massive memorial service in the coming days. It has not been announced yet, to my knowledge, when that might be, but it certainly will be a statewide affair when these bodies are laid to rest. And
Paul Elmstrand's wife released a statement through their church. I spoke with their pastor yesterday at Woodridge. He had met with the family, and again, a loss of words. It just, how somebody so young can be lost like this. His wife Cindy saying, "Our family is heartbroken at Paul's death. He was an amazing husband, father, son, and friend to many. He loved to laugh and loved to play, and he was the most generous, loving, patient person I have ever known, with the biggest smile. He leaves behind 2 small children." And we also spoke to folks at Northwestern University, where he attended in St. Paul, and they also mentioned that this was a calling for him to law enforcement, and he helped to work security on campus too. And this was something that he felt was where he needed to be. He needed to be in law enforcement.
Do we have the picture of Paul from last summer, the children with his wife and daughter? I know we have that in the system. If we could pull that up just to give people a sense for Paul. and you're seeing 169 now just drifting into the city of Jordan. Those multiple first responder vehicles, police, fire, rescue have been escorting the two hearses into the downtown area. And here they come. They're around the corner right now. You can see them behind the last flashing vehicle there. Mm-hmm.
But again, this all happened Sunday very early, before 2 a.m. The first call came in. And these officers from Burnsville Police and Fire and so the governor team was out there. Matthew Ruge in particular was part of that crisis negotiation team. And after several hours, they had a gunfire, and these officers were killed while the paramedic, Adam Finseth, was trying to help these wounded officers.
Paul Elms. Dread. Strand 20. I've just really focused, understandably, on how young they were, Kelsey, and in being domestic. As in this particular case, they nicked those really, really hard. And those are the calls that police officers fear the most. They really dread.
Suspect, potential gunman, the person who know that the 911 call has been made. It's one of those few calls where police officers, as they enter a scene, that time.
Bloom, insight on some of this. We talked about how dangerous those types of calls are, as demonstrated over the last couple of days. Give us some insight. You've covered this type of thing for so many years now, not just here in the Twin Cities, but just in general. Give us your take on that.
Yeah, I want to share kind of a specific anecdote coming out of you guys talking about these officers. Again, 27 years old, the pair of them, their remains arriving now in Jordan. Funeral, no doubt, will happen in the coming days. But we talked when we had Dakota County Sheriff Joe Lico on about Mendota Heights police officer Scott Patrick, who was killed a decade ago, and the man who eulogized him as partner that day at that funeral was Bobby Lambert, now a sergeant over in Dakota County. And Bobby and I we've kept a connection through the years, and he posted a message the other day sort of about his assessment. Now, he's spent 28 years in law enforcement, so he's spent more years wearing the badge, protecting the community in uniform than these young men live their lives, dying
I don't know if you can hear me, but my browser froze on me.